and provocative clothing.
The government asked the question of the chief executive of the Mothers Union, who oddly is a bloke called Reg. But Reg Bailey's report is published today. He's calling for advertisers, retailers and the music industry to clean up their act. Here's Greg Easton.
Hey boy, I really wanna see if you can go.
Raunchy pop videos have their place, but one worry raised by this new report is that they're all over the place, making up a dangerous wallpaper in a child's world that sexualises them too soon. The report calls for sexual imagery to be banned from things like advertising, hoardings and billboards near schools and playgrounds, that parents should be allowed a greater voice in determining what's allowed to be broadcast on TV before the 9 o'clock watershed, and also for music videos to be given a rating system like the one already used for films and DVDs.
I had one mum who said, I've got a 7-year-old daughter, I was happily listening to her singing along to a music video, and then I suddenly listened to the words she was singing, and I was really very shocked and very unhappy about it.
At this Sunday school in Newcastle, parents hope the church will help give their children a better moral start in life. But what worries them is what they see when they leave here.
The main concern really is that it's a background that's everywhere. Things like advertising billboards, they just happen as you're driving along. Perhaps the parent won't even see them because the parent's driving.
I do worry particularly about children's clothing and the advertising that goes with that for some of the shops that are aiming for teenage girls or pre-teenage girls. I find some of the advertising there very worrying.
I am worried about the images on videos for pop music, that obviously your children, that they might be playing, for example, in gyms and things like that, where you are just, going through and you're listening to the song, but some of the sort of images that you don't want young children to be viewing.
Some retailers have already responded to concerns by signing up to strict new guidelines on the kinds of clothes they market at children.
We've worked very closely with Reg Bailey and his team during the review, and our work on these guidelines has really grown out of that conversation. But obviously what retail do is just one small piece of a much wider debate going on in society.
David Cameron's also called for a new website to be up and running in months, where parents can complain about anything they think threatens precious childhoods.
Greg Easton.
Now, Michael Cullen from the Family and Parenting Institute joins us now. So, look, you could argue, couldn't you, that it was ever thus. Parents have always said, oh, my goodness, what kids see now, is terrible. Why is it now that the government should be stepping in, or authorities should be stepping in to control it?
Well, things have changed. Sure, pop music has always been racy. Madonna in the 1980s, you could argue that's similar to the Rihanna videos now. But this new generation of children, they're under unique pressures. When I was a boy, I was born in 1982, my parents could control to a certain extent what messages came through to me, because there was just one box in the living room. That was the way I interacted with the media. But these days children have the internet, they have the internet on their phones, and so certain unscrupulous businesses who want to push certain messages to young children.
Well, that's the interesting thing, I think, isn't it? It's the commercialisation of it. I mean, you might think your parents had control. My parents thought they had control, but what I saw in the playground, what I heard, there's always been sources of children other than what their parents have said. But I think it's the money involvement now. I mean, I think all of us in the newsroom are very surprised that the children are being sort of targeted to spread the word on stuff by social media, on saucy marketing. That's really new, isn't it?
Yeah, certain advertisers, certain marketing firms, they know that pester power is the way to get to the parent's pocket. If you recruit the child to target the parent's pocket, that's the way to make big bucks.
Yeah.
But surely you need rules. The government needs rules to say what's right and what's wrong. If you talk about a big billboard with some kind of raunchy image on it, then they're just talking about voluntary codes and all that namby-pamby stuff. It never works. Somebody's got to say that is out of order when you've got kids driving past it. But the Mothers Union isn't suggesting that.
Well, what the report's saying is that they're going to give business 18 months to get their house in order. And self-regulation can actually be a very powerful thing. If you get businesses involved, and if you sell the commercial case, if you say, look, if you target the family-friendly pound, there can be a lot of money there. If you relax parents more, they're more likely to be consumers, they're more likely to get their wallets out. So self-regulation, businesses can get on board with the government, with families, because the responsibility is shared.
And ultimately, I suppose it's going to have to be a conversation, because whether or not we like it, that world's out there for youngsters. That's what they're going to have to live through, isn't it?
Absolutely, and no one wants to return to the 1950s. I mean, from the perspective of the organisation I work for, the Family and Parenting Institute, it's not some kind of old-fashioned moral crusade. We just want to empower parents. We want to give them a little bit more control, once again, as they used to have, in terms of what messages their children absorb.
All right, thank you very much indeed for your time. Still to come on Daybreak this morning. Phil Ray Smith checking out the cars at the world's biggest free motoring event.